UTL, committed to trust.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this UTL Trust Management Services webinar titled Preserving Your Assets Through Estate Planning. My name is Bibidola Agbileshe, and I'll be the moderator for this session. I would like to thank everyone for logging on as expected. We look forward to having an engaging session. Before we proceed, kindly permit me to start off by introducing distinguished guests and speakers. First of all, I'd like to introduce our host, Mrs. Olufunke Ayipola. Mrs. Olufunke Ayipola is the MD CEO, UTL Trust Management Services. One of our hosts are first Mr. Abiodun Adedipe, who is the Managing Director, BAA Consult. We also have Mr. Oduola, who is a retired commissioner of, pardon me for that, who is retired from the Lagos State Ministry of Commerce and Industry. We also have Mrs. Bolanle Komolafe. She is a United Kingdom certified will writer and trust expert here with us at UTL Trust Services. Thank you very much, everyone. So I would like to set a couple of ground rules for this webinar. Let us kindly ensure all microphones are muted. In the event that any of the participants has any questions or comments, kindly signify by raising your hand or typing in the question and answer box. Mrs. Olufunke Ayipola is going to have a brief talk with us. Mrs. Ayipola, please go on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bibi. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and our esteemed guest speakers. It's indeed a great pleasure to have you all at this webinar, Preserving Your Estate through your Assets Through Estate Planning. At UTL Trustees, our focus is on providing services that cater to the needs of our clients at all times seamlessly. And one of those needs is the need to provide for yourself or your dependents in times of ill health, in times of demise, and other compelling situations. So that's what this webinar is all about, how to ensure that you make such adequate provision for the times we have spoken about. Having been in operation for almost 6 decades, we at UTL, we understand what the challenges and complexities of family that arise from family inheritances are. And so we have a combination of our wealth of experience and the expertise of our team to utilize in structuring and delivering unique solutions that will cater to the needs of each client, the specific needs of each client. We're a duly registered company by the Securities and Exchange Commission to provide trusteeship, portfolio, and fund management services. And in furtherance of our aim to provide seamless services to our clients, in February 2019, we launched a multiple award-winning online writing platform service. And that's the Willpower, which you can access at www.willpower.ng. Now, this service is a secured one, is a reliable one, it's pocket-friendly, and you can create simple trust and wills even on this platform. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation. Here is our guest speaker, Mr. Oduola, who will be talking to us briefly for the next few minutes. Mr. Oduola, please. Mr. Oduola.
Good afternoon, Mr. Oduola. Can you hear us?
Okay, let's proceed. To Dr. Adedipe. Dr. Adedipe is the non-executive director of UTL Trust Management Services and is the MD of BAA Consult. Dr. Adedipe, please. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you so very much for having me here as a part of this event, which indeed is very important and also relevant not only to us as individuals, but more importantly, looking at tomorrow, which is what this is all about. I have a few slides, which, if that would be okay with you and the audience, I will share them and then talk to them very briefly and quickly. So, and essentially the focus is on the essence of this conversation, making your legacy work real. But we look at it in BAA as what are the issues and what are the opportunities. So now the first thing I want to bring to our attention is this particular statement, which we in BA looked at as an issue in talking to this particular event. And it's a statement credited to Victor Belfort. He said, legacy is not what I did for myself, it's what I'm doing for the next generation. Which means legacy is not about me, it's about those that come after me. So now, how does this play out? And we identify a few issues. To start with, we said, as a kind of background, lasting legacy for dependents is a responsibility of every rational man. So of course, as we commonly say, that if a man will be rational in looking at issues generally, then this should be one of the issues in his life. Now, the same thing applies to a woman anyway. The word man is used there in the generic sense. Now, legacy also goes beyond transferring assets or money. It also entails instilling value for the beneficiaries of the assets, which is like the common saying we make, that it is important not just to teach your children how to count, but also teach them what counts. So now, the other thing we want to bring to the attention of the audience is that if you fail to plan for your wishes, someone else will plan for you. It's like saying there is something in your hand. If you have no plan on how to make effective and right use of it, somebody else will make a plan to use it for you. And that might not be to your advantage or benefit anyway. And then legacy planning, as a nature, is futuristic. And it's, of course, a futuristic financial strategy that secures the financial and wealth of the owners or dependents. So we then said that the occasion UTL trustees has brought forward today is that for us to reflect and consider the future. So, and the whole idea is leaving a lasting legacy of peace, which is doing it right, or crisis if we don't do it right. So now, following that, we then came to this understanding that there are general issues globally. And that's what we did in this particular slide. We said, let's even look beyond Nigeria and look globally. But first and foremost, remind ourselves that as we speak today, I think this report came out just 2 days ago or overnight between 2 days ago and yesterday, that the aggregate pension fund in Nigeria today is 12.398 trillion naira. That was at the end of April 2021. Now, one of the things that willpower, as the MD mentioned earlier on, does is to help allocate retirement savings value. Now, there's also unclaimed dividend, which increased by 32% in 2019 to 158.4 billion naira. Again, that can be partly attributed to low rate of asset transfer plan, that is wills. Because if people have wills, of course, what would have gone as unclaimed dividend would ordinarily have been processed into the estate. Now, going beyond Nigeria and trying to establish the reason why it's important to do wills, only 64% of Americans, 36% of Americans have wills, meaning 64% of them don't have a will because they have good records there, okay? Now, look at the demography of it. Younger Americans, that is 70% of those aged 45 to 54 have than for all older Americans. That's the way it applies to them. Also, 54% of those aged between 55 and 64 years in the US do not have a will. Now let's come back home. 8 out of 10 Nigerians above 45 years have no will. That means Nigerians above 45 years of age, only 2 out of 10 have wills. And then also, 7 out of 10 will not make one before they pass, which means only 3, by the time they pass, have a will. And that tells us immediately here that this is an issue that needs to be addressed by products like willpower that UTI trustees, has promoted, and as the MD said, has won awards multiple times. Now, what are the excuses people give? Oh, the cost of doing a will is too high. My ethnic and cultural background doesn't support that. Oh, I'm too busy. I have no time for that. I don't even trust the system. If I do a will they really execute it as I've indicated as my wishes? Look, don't talk to me about will. I'm not ready to die now. Okay, people make all manner of excuses. Okay, but let me move now to wrap up my presentation. Now, why is it that when people make wills also, it is contested? Either because of the capacity of the will owner, that is mental state, that argument, or lack of validity, valid execution, or lack of knowledge and approval, undue influence, fraudulent and forged will. All of these are things that happen and result in what we describe as contested wills. So now, what are the potential issues that can arise without a lasting legacy? Family crisis, and we have seen this variously, okay? Even from well-to-do families and well-respected and well-known high net worth individuals and the rest of them. High legal cost also, and of course, damaged legacy. So let me go to the final part of my presentation. What are the opportunities within this space? The decision to leave a lasting legacy begins now. That means don't fight it tomorrow. Make that decision today. Also, there's a need to protect the interests of your children and loved ones. I remember recently I remarked in a local church talking to the men, and in fact, I think women were also there. It was a joint fellowship meeting. And I said, look, as a man, you work so hard all through your life. And then when you pass, all the things God enables you to acquire. Now, some rascals walk out from somewhere in the extended family, and they chase your wife and children away from them and say they are taking over. I said it's because you don't have a will, a formal documentation that is legal and recognized. That is why such things will happen. And I also remember mentioning to them that it is not an African phenomenon, it's global in nature, okay? Which means it is important to ensure you align your investment decisions with appropriate beneficiaries. Of course, the technology platform provided by Willpower is a much cheaper option. Why? Because you have assets such as financial investments, you have insurance policies, you have pension payment, landed properties, and so on and so forth. All of these conveniently are accumulated by Willpower. So my last slide here, and that is, I call it end notes. The cost of leaving a lasting legacy is cheaper than the price of not leaving one. Then, secondly, the responsibility for creating a lasting legacy lies in you. And that means it doesn't have any respect to income or age. That means whether you are old or in a certain age bracket, it's not the issue. The point is that whenever you pass, you want a situation where what God has blessed you with goes to the people you actually want to have it. So that means it's time to actually deal with the myth that only the super rich need to write wills. So finally, you decide. Nobody can make that decision for you. But our own recommendation here is that don't wait till tomorrow. Make that decision today. So thank you so very much. I think that is all I have to say here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Adidipe. Mr. Oduola, are you there now, sir? We would like to have a brief talk from you. Okay, I think we may just move on to Bolanle Komolafe. Bolanle Komolafe is going to, okay, I think Mr. Ojola is, okay, he's ready to have a talk with us. Mr. Ojola, please go on. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Ojola, we cannot hear you. Seems you may be muted. Okay, for now, let us move on to Bolanle Komolafe. Bolanle Komolafe is going to engage us on preserving your assets with proper estate planning. Thank you, Bolanle. Please go on.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you very much for joining us for this short period of time. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly. Okay. I believe we can see my screen now. The discussion we're going into now is preserving your assets through estate planning, just like Bibi Dola has said. And during this discussion, we'll look into what the concept of estate planning is. We'll ask ourselves several questions as to the relevance and benefits of estate planning. We'll look at the major vehicles of estate planning. And of course, we'll talk about UTL's solution to estate planning. So number one, what is an estate? An estate is the entire wealth of an individual. It comprises of all of his assets and properties. These words, during the course of our discussion, I will be using those two words interchangeably. That's properties and assets, because they mean the same thing. So assets can be tangible, things that we can see, such as houses, jewelries, cars, and everything that we can handle physically. Assets can also be intangibles, such as group life insurance policies, stocks and shares, and then of course, intellectual property in things such as writing, or people that write books, they collect royalty on those books. The thing what gives them the right to collect all that money on those things that they have done is called intellectual property. So this is also your property. It's also an asset that constitutes your estate. Therefore, estate planning is a guide on how you own, you manage, and preserve these things. Okay? Estate planning is not about how to put brick and mortar together to construct a building or how to manage a house that you have built. That's not what estate planning is. Estate planning, just like I said, is regarding your ownership of properties, your management of those properties, and your preservation of those properties for the coming generation. The idea is to ensure that your affairs are managed in a convenient and lawful manner. Whether we like it or not, all of us are involved in estate planning. Yes, each and every one of us, as long as you own something, you are involved in estate planning. But the question is, do we complete the different processes involved in estate planning? What do I mean by that? Now, when you go to work and you're paid your salaries at the end of the month, for people who are salaried workers, that is acquisition stage of estate planning. When you invest that money in an instrument, or maybe you fix it up, or you buy a property, you're trying to preserve that asset of yours. The final stage of estate planning, which is what we will really dwell on today, is the distribution of those assets that you own. Now I want to ask myself, what is the relevance? Why don't I just own my assets and leave the distribution of it to, just in vacuum? What is the relevance of having an estate plan? The first relevance of having an estate plan is identification of assets. Now, it sounds so simple, but in our experience, we have found out that it can be a big issue where there is no estate planning. For instance, we've had instances where people will ask us to work with them towards having an estate plan, and then when we start the work, they say that these and these are the things I have, which is, of course, identifying their assets. And then a week later, they come back and say, oh, I forgot I had this, or I didn't realize I have this, or I have this and nobody knows about it except me. Now, the question is, what would have happened, if this particular set of people pass on without really listing those things, without identifying those things with the help of a professional? What would happen when you have an asset and your loved ones don't know about it and you pass on? So this is one of the key relevances of having an estate plan. And of course, we don't know the length of our lives. We don't know how long we will live. Passing on is an inevitable thing that must happen. We cannot determine even when it will happen, and we cannot even determine how it will happen. It is a reality of life. Although our wish for you at UTL is that you will live long and fulfill all your desires in life. Notwithstanding our wishes, every one of us at one time or the other must pass on. And of course, it's also relevant to ensure that what you have gathered, what you have acquired, what you have preserved does not fall into the wrong hands, does not fall into the hands of persons you never intended to enjoy them. The only way to ensure that your assets are benefited by people that you intend is by having an estate plan. So you can have an estate plan for your own benefits, for the benefit of your loved ones, because when you have a plan, you're able to avoid conflict among your loved ones. And you can use it as a tool of financial planning. You can take care of, for example, aged parents and special needs children. People who have special needs children, this is particularly very, very important for them, because you know that special needs children require care, and you don't, because you of course don't know the length of your life. So you have an estate plan that details how you want these people to be taken care of. So like I mentioned earlier, that we'll talk about the vehicles of estate planning. That's how you can do your estate plan. There are several means by which you can have an estate plan, but the most common and the ones that we are going to concentrate on today are wills and trusts. And I love so much what our speaker earlier had said, that's in the person of Dr. Adedipe, regarding wills. A will is a statement from you appointing one or two persons, whether natural persons or corporate entities, that is companies, as your executors and trustees, stating that these and these are the properties and assets that you have, and also stating that this is the manner in which you want those assets to pass to other people. Very, very simple as that. On the other hand, a trust is also a legal arrangement by which you appoint a trustee, whether an individual or a company such as UTL, and give that trustee the mandate to manage your affairs for your benefit and for the benefit of your loved ones, as the case may be. Now, these are instruments that have been used for generations. Even outside of Nigeria, these wills have been used for a long time, for centuries, to do estate planning. Very, very common tool for estate planning. And of course, I'm sure that all of my listeners are very familiar with this. And trust, maybe if you look at the usage of trust, the utilization of trust, they might not be so widely used, but it's actually a very good tool for estate planning. And that's why we are having this discussion today, so that we can know that these are the things that you can do to ensure that your affairs are in order. So I'm going to dwell a bit more on trust. Like I said, I'm sure we are very familiar with wills already. but I will dwell a bit more on trust. So, like I said, it's an arrangement where you appoint someone, individual or company, to manage your assets. It's just like employing a driver. You have a car, which in this hypothetical case represents your affairs, and then you employ a driver. The driver, you can drive your car yourself, but the driver, that is what he does every day. So he has become an expert in driving your car. He's a professional. He knows how to navigate all the corners of Lagos. He knows how to get you out of traffic. He knows how to use, he knows so much about driving. So you commit that into it. And whenever you wish, you can drive your car, but then you still commit so that you can have peace of mind. You commit your affairs into the hands of this trustee. A company such as UTL is regulated by the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, to ensure that there is oversight and to ensure that things are done properly. And that is why UTL exists as a corporate trustee. So in a trust arrangement, you can, when you give your instructions to a trustee, there is a document called a trust deed, which is a legal document that consists of all the conditions and terms that guides your trust, that guides the creation of your trust. Once you sign that document, immediately your trust comes into effect. All the instructions that you have given, any initial capital fund that you put into your trust comes into effect, and the trustee can use that to do whatever you want to do. There are so many things you can do with a living trust. You can set up an education trust for your children. Even if you have the mind of going into charitable donations, you can do that with a trust. And you can also take care of your aged parents, any category of persons, by using a trust. And of course, because these are instructions that you've given whilst you are alive, when you pass on, these instructions are not easily contested because there is proof that this is what you wanted. So a trust goes further than a will will go regarding the management of your assets. A will is basically to say that you want to distribute your assets to this and this and that. But a trust will ensure that your assets are also managed professionally in a manner that you desire. The second type of trust is a trust that is will-based. It's called a testamentary trust, in the sense that it is written into a will. A very common example of a testamentary trust is a statement in your will that says, I appoint Mrs. XYZ as guardian to my underage children who are aged maybe 4 or 5 at the point of writing the will, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I mean, if I pass on before they become 18 years, which is the age of majority in Nigeria, before they become adults, so to speak, before they become adults, if I pass on, an instruction in your will stating that this person will take care of them as their legal guardian is a form of trust, which your trustee will carry out. So the thing with a testamentary trust is it doesn't come into effect until you have passed, as against a living trust that you write immediately becomes effective. A testamentary trust, which is written into a will, can only come into effect after you have passed, because your will ordinarily come into effect after you have passed. So when you write your trust and you pass, your trust is irrevocable. That appointment or that gift that you have made to 1 or 2 persons, or instructions that you have given regarding the management of your assets, they become irrevocable. So we've always had to deal with the misconception, and I think Doctor also mentioned it. Dr. Adedipe mentioned it regarding people thinking that it is a person that is about to die or at the brink of death that writes will. This is not true. And sometimes I hold our local entertainment responsible for this kind of conception. Sometimes, you watch movies where the person is about to die, and then they call the lawyer, and then the man scribbles something, and before you know it, the man is dead, or he was sick and all that, and he's gone. So it makes us to, associate, it perpetrates that conception that having a will is synonymous with, just about being that. No, that's not true. And that's not the case. As long as you are an adult, as long as you have assets and you have no wish to have those assets treated anyhow because you are not around, you have to have an estate plan. It is essential. It is important. As of 2019, I also hope that we noted some of the statistics that Doctor gave us earlier. Just to add to that, as of 2019, 67% of adults in the UK did not have an estate plan. As at now, as at last month, that percentage has dropped drastically because of what happened around the world in 2020, and of course, what is still happening now, and number of lives that have been lost. That percentage has dropped. And of course, in Nigeria, we're also saying that this thing is essential. The statistics in Nigeria are also not very good, and if people just, on the other side, if they have an idea of this is what's going to happen to their loved ones when they don't have an estate plan, I'm sure the case will be different. But of course, I know that all our listeners today will not wait till it's too late. They will immediately go on and have an estate plan. We cannot but talk about the RSA wills, and Doctor also mentioned this. In the Pension Reform Act of 2014 established a contributory pension scheme by which employers and employees contribute into a pool and that pool is called a pension fund, and it's managed by pension fund administrators, and that the balances in that account is not available to the employee until a particular age. As at today, it is 50 years of age. The balances cannot be accessed until that age, but it's yours. It's part of your assets. It's part of your estate. So it is important that you do something about it, because the law also states that if an employee passes on before that age, before accessing that fund, the beneficiaries of that employee cannot access the balances unless they produce a will or letters of administration. And in our experience, we have found out that letters of administration can be very, very tasking to get. In fact, people take up to 2, 3, 4 years, even more sometimes. Yes, life cases of 7, 8 years just to get letters of administration. In the meantime, the funds are there. In the meantime, the assets are being dissipated. Of course, because some real estate lose value. So the assets are there. You cannot use them as you ought to use them. The beneficiaries are there. They are not well taken care of, just because the owner of the balances in the account either didn't identify them or ultimately didn't have an estate plan. So the goal here is to ensure that at least you have an RSA will to ensure that your beneficiaries are able to easily and seamlessly access the balances in your RSA accounts. Because of all the things that we have seen, because the examples are just there. If we start to discuss all the things that we have seen in the market, we won't have enough time to just be discussing them. We have an instance of someone who didn't have an estate plan, and the extended family came in, not minding the fact that this man had a wife and children. The extended family came in and just wanted to take everything away, until we came in as interim administrators and were able to at least gather the estate and save it for the welfare of his loved ones. But this man just went to work one day and didn't come back. So also we have instance of a man that was in a coma, and he was the sole signatory to his account. Didn't have a will, didn't have a trust. Nobody could act on his behalf. The family were just looking at the money, and nobody could touch it because it wasn't dead. So they couldn't even go and look for letters of administration. He was merely incapacitated. You cannot go to court and say you want to read his will. even if he had one. But if such a man had a trust, at least the trustee would have been able to come in, the trustee like his driver, as we mentioned earlier, and take care of him, because trust also admits the maker as a beneficiary. So we have seen so many things, and we cannot just continue to mention all these instances. We just wanted to know that having an estate plan at this point in time, it's very, very crucial and important. UTL has made it very easy for people, very convenient for people, and very, very seamless. When you go on to www.willpower.ng, which is our online will writing platform that has won so many awards in the financial services sector, you find the solutions there. There are 2 channels via which we render these services. There is the online services and, of course, the offline services. If you go online to www.willpower.ng, you have the option of doing either your RSA wills, which covers what we had discussed earlier, your RSA retirement savings account balances, or a simple will, which covers moderate estates, and of course, simple trust, which gives simple instructions, such as education trust for your children. Those are our online solutions. And the offline solutions are a bit more comprehensive, depending on the instructions that you give regarding your trust. People who want to take care of special circumstances, a bit more elaborate. Those are comprehensive. And of course, people with large estates and more instructions can also do comprehensive will. The processes are very, very simple. In fact, in the comfort of your homes, you can make your will. You just need to have your utility bill and means of ID, and then know what you list your assets and know how you want to devise your assets, and then you are on your way to having an estate. As simple as that, just 5 easy steps, and you have an estate plan. We've already engaged a reputable courier company who will ensure that those documents get into the hands of professionals who will review those documents for you, and of course, lodge the documents at the probate registry in the case of a will, all over the country, wherever you are using the platform for. All over the country in Nigeria, we have professionals who will lodge the will for you. And of course, and it has a force of law because it's deposited at the probate registry of the different states. And if it is a trust, it will also be registered at the Federal Inland Revenue Service. And that means once you do that, you have an estate plan. And of course, the comprehensive will and trust also follows the same process, only that is not done online. It's done by face-to-face engagement with our officers who will ask you questions. You fill the necessary forms, give the necessary KYC documentation, and of course, you have your estate plan. So for something that as simple as this, the question you want to ask yourself is, why not go for it so that you are able to, take benefits of all the advantages of having an estate plan sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for listening to us. Our website is www.willpower.ng, and of course there is also www.utltrustees.com, or you send a mail to us or read the numbers on your screen at the moment. So we're going to take questions and answers. If there's any area that you would like more clarification or anything that you would like us to talk over once more, we're going to have questions and answers right now. Thank you so much for listening. We are very grateful that you have stayed online and that you are still online. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bolanle Komolafe. Before we go to the question and answers, we have Mr. Udola. He has sent us a message that he would be able to talk right now. So he's going to give us a brief. Mr. Udola, I hope you can hear us now, and I hope the communication issue has been resolved. Wow, Mr. Ozola, we cannot hear you. We still cannot hear you. We still cannot hear you. Well, while we're still trying to resolve the communication issue once again, I think we will take questions and answers for now. At this time, we have only one question from an Oluwafemi Salami. And the question goes thus: I have a bitter experience with trustees that managed our gratuity in my former place of work. The organization went into mergers and acquisition, and the new owner took over the gratuity without our consent. The issue is now in court with all manners of delay since 2012. What is the best and fastest line of closure in case of reoccurrence? I would probably like to call on the Managing Director, UTL Trust Management Services, to give an answer to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi. It's quite an unfortunate experience that Mr. Salami had. But the best way to go about gratuity schemes is to ensure that they are moved to external parties like a corporate trustee or to a pension fund administrator. That way, you would have moved it out from within the purview of your organization. And in the event of mergers or acquisitions of the company, you wouldn't be finding yourself in the kind of situation you found yourself today. So that's the best thing to do. Move it to an external party, a third party, an independent third party that would be able to manage such for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MD. We also have a couple of questions that came in during the registration process. I would like to go through them one at a time. I know either you or Mrs. Bolanle Komolafe should be able to provide us with answers. So the first question, there are no names to these actually, but the first question is how do I open an estate account? Bolanle, could you provide an answer, please?
Okay. In the case of the trust, to open a trust account, all you have to do is contact us via willpower.ng and then give your instructions and state the amount of money that you would have to carry out those instructions. This fund is referred to as initial capital fund, because that's the basis upon which you're giving instructions to the trustee, and an account will be opened on your behalf. And from time to time, any interest that accrues on that amount is also, is recapitalized, and whatever instructions you are given, this interest will also go into carrying them out, and statements will be issued to you from time to time. So it's a very simple process. Just give your instructions regarding your trust and then deposit your initial capital fund in the account number that will be provided for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bolanle. Another question: how do I go about writing a will? What is the cost of having a will? Well, you can just visit our website, www.utltrustees.com or www.willpowerng.com, and these you will definitely get answers to these questions. Someone also says, aside from transferring house assets, how else can one ensure such is protected for one's future wards? Let me rephrase, for one's future wards. Aside from transferring house assets, how else can one ensure such are protected for one's future wards?
Okay, that's where a trustee comes in. Like I mentioned earlier, a trust is to ensure that you don't only distribute, that you also manage. Even when you are not around, that your instructions will be carried out to the letter. Let me give you an instance of someone who has a spendthrift child. If you have children that you know that if you give this child 2 million today, tomorrow that 2 million is gone. The wise thing to do is not to give that child huge sums of money, or to will that child huge sums of money that he will have in bulk when when you pass. So the wise thing to do is to put these funds in the charge of a trustee who would manage that trust and ensure that at intervals disbursements are made to this trust. So aside from having just distributing your estate, you can ensure that things are done at intervals. And it's not even only for your loved ones. Some people have passion regarding educating orphans and supporting widows. The way to ensure that this can be done, we are trustees to foundations who the persons that even established the foundations are no longer alive. They have passed, and their instructions, which is encapsulated in a trust deed, is still being carried out, or their instructions in their wills are still being carried out, because from time to time, a corporate entity is carrying out the instructions. Corporate entities don't die. A company like UTL, apart from that, the fact that we have been in existence for so long, that's 1966, we cannot just die, because there are rules that even ensures that we don't mix our assets, our funds, with the funds of clients. And if for any reason a trustee company is going down, all the trust assets goes into another trust company. So that ensures that as long as you want your legacy to last, it will last. As long as you want these monies to be disbursed, they will be disbursed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Bolanle. Another question. How relevant is this lecture to someone preparing for retirement on a monthly salary? How relevant is this lecture to someone preparing for retirement on a monthly salary?
This is very, very relevant in the sense that depending on other peculiarities of the person asking the questions, you need to have a will or a trust to ensure that, for instance, those the assets that you have can be put into a trust to ensure that first that you are able to augment whatever you're getting per month, depending on your particular circumstance anyway, and to also ensure that you have a will to ensure that whatever you're still going to be getting is also properly utilized and devolved. Thank you.
Okay, just take this last question.
Just 1 minute, Bibi.
Yes,
I would like to add to what Bolanle said. Now, for somebody who's almost retiring, definitely you must have acquired some assets in the course of your employment. And if you are in an organization that makes contributions even into the RSA account, your RSA account is still there, and you can make bequest or write a will or have a trust as regards that. Also remember that if your company organization is one that has been making contributions, definitely you will also have a group life insurance policy. And the position of the law is that it's a minimum of 3 times total emoluments. So all of these are assets that you can put together even into your will or to your testamentary trust. So we need to remember that these assets are there. A lot of times we don't remember that these assets are there. And also remember that whatever you have in your bank account, whatever you have acquired over the years can also be part of this. You can also make provisions for your exit plan with all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayekola. Thank you. So we'll take this last question. We do have a couple of other questions, but we will take this last question. Does a stepchild or a child and mother from a previous marriage have a right to my estate? Yes, Bolanle.
Okay. I'm going to answer that question. It depends on what you want. Aside from persons who have their estates guided by Islamic law, definitely your estate plan is about what you want. One of the benefits of having an estate plan is to manage complications of live. And having maybe several marriages or having children out of wedlock is one of these kind of instances where you have an estate plan. So it's about what you want. It's about, if you state it as it is, that is how it would be. It is only when you don't have an estate plan that these issues cannot be determined. But once you have an estate plan, you can determine how you want to resolve these issues with expert advice, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Bolanle. Thank you, Bolanle. So we are going to have a quick word from our head of legal and trust services, Mr. Ekom Umoso. He would just like to share a brief word with us. Mr. Umoso, please, could you?
Thank you very much, Bibi. I want to say that we thank all of us this day, having been here and to be a part of this webinar. I appreciate everyone. And as had been said, estate planning is a thing that all of us need to do. You know, we go out there every day to make wealth, to get one asset or the other. Thereafter, we continue to think, how do we preserve this? And then we think, how do we dispose? So in our everyday life, we should know that as we go out to struggle, we should have a plan in case I am not there. What happens? I want to give us a very brief story. Someone that we had been prospecting for an estate plan. The person keeps postponing the date, and on a particular date, he gave a call to me that we should meet the next day so that we can tidy up, you know, the arrangements. And the next day I called so that I can meet him. The phone did not, no one to pick the phone. And subsequently, we had this information that just by that in that night, the person had passed on. So there is no time and there is no need for delay in doing an estate plan. It is a worthwhile thing that one can do. And I do encourage all of us to, at this moment, put an estate plan in place. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ekom Umoso. Thank you very much, Bolanle. Thank you very much, Mrs. Aipola. Thank you very much, Dr. Adedipe. Mr. Udola, thank you very much. We hope probably at our next session, we can have you talk. We hope the communication issue would have been resolved by then. So we have come to the end of this webinar and we believe it has been very beneficial. At this time, there are no further questions or comments from participants. So I would like to thank you for your participation. We do hope to hear from you soon. The easiest way to reach us is via our website, www.utltrustees.com. And any of our highly trained professional staff will be on hand to help you. Thank you very much for participating. God bless and have a lovely day.
And this morning, this guy